What do you think the best things working here?
I'm always amazed to see that there are many Indonesian people who like to travel to Japan. So I'm very much warmly received by many Indonesian people. So that's really the best thing in my life as ambassador.
In the end of July, President Joko Widodo paid a visit to Japan and had a meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio. They discussed several matters, among others are the Indo-Pacific issue, the bilateral trade relation, investment, and Indonesian-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement that is expected to be signed in G20 summit next November. The two also talk about cooperation in the climate change mitigation and energy sectors. The two countries are expected to strengthen the cooperation that has been established for some 65 years since the opening of diplomatic relationship. I'm Purwani Dia Prabandari, and you are watching Tempo Talks. To elaborate about the enhancement of bilateral relation and cooperation between Japan and Indonesia, we have His Excellency Kanasugi Kenji, the Ambassador of Japan to Indonesia, with us today in Tempo Talks. Mr. Kanasugi, it's an honor to have you here.
Well, thank you very much. It's me to be able to say that I'm quite happy to join you today.
Thank you. And you know that's about the visit, the President Jokowi visit to Japan on July, right? And what's actually the result? Can you elaborate more about the result of the meeting at that time?
Well, I think it was a quite successful visit. They talked about the bilateral economic cooperation as well as regional and international issues we need to tackle, especially as Indonesia hosting a G20 summit this year. I think it's very important for our two countries to coordinate our position in the run-up to the G20 summit. And as you said, Japan, Indonesia are very important strategic partners to realize and maintain free and open, prosperous Indo-Pacific. So we talked a lot. And I think all in all, a quite successful visit by President Joko Widodo.
So is there any development after that meeting so far? Or you just started or just continue the program before?
Well, there's been ongoing cooperation between our two countries. As you said, we established diplomatic relationships in 1958. And since then, numerous agenda items of cooperation has been pursued by our two countries. We really hope that Indonesia remain a very stable, important partners in the region. And for that matter, we hope that Indonesia continue to develop or pursue sustainable economic development into the future. And Japan is ready to help. In the case of Japanese government, infrastructure development is a very important agenda. Be that Patimban Port in West Java province or MRT Jakarta. Also, energy transition is a common challenge for our two countries. So all in all, I think our cooperation has been going on very smoothly and will be more elaborated into the future.
That's true. So it's so many things that we have in the cooperation. But is there any priorities in that cooperation that you plan to do in the rest of your assignment here?
I think one important agenda item is energy transition. Japan, Indonesia are placed in a very similar situation. We are very much reliant on fossil fuel energy, and also we are island nations, archipelagic nations. So it's very difficult for us to connect our power grid with outside, if not impossible. So we need to tackle common challenges of realistic energy transition.
What kind of program in the cooperation on this sector?
Well, for example, Japan and Indonesia, as I said, I think by the time we achieve carbon neutrality, in the case of Japan 2050, in the case of Indonesia 2060, while it's important to put emphasis on renewable, we still be reliant on fossil fuel. So how we can make these fossil fuel energy production more efficient is very important. So we are promoting coal firing with biomass, ammonia, and also hydrogen. And at the same time, so-called CCUS technology, carbon capture, utilization, and storage. It's a very disruptive new innovation, but I think we need to tackle common challenges between our two countries.
And it's also the investment of Japan and Indonesia, especially in the vehicle manufacturing. Is it also become a priority to produce or manufacture its greener vehicles in Indonesia?
Yes.
It's big, right? Toyota,
yes.
Honda.
Yes. I think that's true that we need to move to a battery EV. But if we look at what's happening on the ground in Indonesia, leapfrogging to battery EV may not be realistic at this juncture. The number of charging facility is still limited, and because of the traffic congestion, battery vehicle alone may not be able to sustain itself. So that's why Japanese companies, auto companies, are producing hybrid vehicles here in Indonesia. So it's a bridging technology towards battery EV, and further down the road, so-called fuel cell technology and hydrogen engine vehicles may be available. So rest assured that Japan is behind no one in pursuing green energy and green car technologies in Indonesia.
Are we doing it step by step, hybrid, and then next time maybe it's total greener vehicles?
Yes. And Japanese companies are doing a kind of demonstration project utilizing battery EV in Bali, and also most recently in Lake Toba. Of course, they are important tourist destinations, so it's important to revitalize tourism industry in Bali and Lake Toba. So I think we are making steady progress towards greener car here in Indonesia.
It's also another sectors of the investment of Japan in Indonesia. It's also try to transform to be more or greener industry or economy in the cooperation with Indonesia.
Yes, I think, as I said, green energy is very important, and we have a Jakarta Japan Club. That's a Chamber of Commerce of Japan and the Japan Club located in Jakarta.
Okay.
And they formed a carbon neutral task force this year, and they identified more than 340 projects where Japanese companies are involved to make a greener energy. And this is really the material, and maybe you can have a look at it later.
Okay.
But they identified 340 or more projects where Japanese companies are involved right now.
Also, that's you said before, the cooperation is quite close between Indonesia and Japan. And in February, Japan and Indonesia agreed to strengthen cooperation in innovation and sustainable economy through public-private track 1.5, right? Japan-Indonesia Co-Creation Partnership for Innovative and Sustainable Economic Society. So what's this is about?
I think in order to beef up our relationship, we need to mobilize all the stakeholders, government and private sectors on both sides. That's why we decided to establish Track 1.5, involving all the stakeholders to beef up our economy. I think they had the first round of meeting in late April and identified, amongst other areas, One is digital transformation, green industry, enhanced resilience in supply chain, and human capacity buildings. And we'd like to have concrete result out of these important areas of cooperation. And the second round of Track 1.5 meeting, we hope we can organize it before G20 summit meeting in November. So I think we are moving on toward the direction.
Okay. And it's also there is cooperation in the automotive and digital industries, namely the new manufacturing industry development center, right? So what this is also about?
It's a so-called new MIDIC, and it's basically an industrial cooperation between our two countries. We need to promote private sector's initiative because at the end of the day, it's private sectors to make a move in enhancing our cooperation. And so far, we identified human resource development in car industries, molding technology, as well as management of companies. So I think we need to promote industrial cooperation further by utilizing this new MIDIC mechanism.
Is there any like big increase of the investment of Japan in Indonesia this years?
Well, traditionally, our investment has been big in auto industry as well as energy sector. But more recently, Japanese companies have diversified investment, be that property development or retail sectors or food industry. So we hope that as Indonesia grows bigger, there are more investment opportunities for Japanese companies, not only auto industry and energy sector, but other sectors as well.
Now Indonesia knows about ramen. That's the food.
Well, Indonesia is the biggest consumer of
For the instant noodle.
So yes, so was Japan.
And it's also people knows Uniqlo.
Yes, retail industry.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
many Uniqlo products are made in Indonesia.
Right.
Just mind you.
That's true. And what about again about the infrastructure you mentioned before? Can you more detail about the infrastructure project
Yes.
in Indonesia?
For example,
I mean, the MRT right now, yeah.
Yeah, MRT. I think when it was built, start operation in March 2019. I think it is transforming the lifestyle of Jakartan people. I think people started to rely more on public transportation, and MRT is operating very precise timing, very clean cars and stations. I think
It's comfortable.
yes. Surprisingly, I think about a month ago, MRT was delayed for a few minutes. People started to complain. So that's really changing the mindset of our people in Jakarta.
Usually Indonesian is already used to with the
Delay?
Yeah, the delay.
But MRT completed only 1/4 of the entire project. So it will move up to the north, and also east-west line is under planning. So we hope that MRT is one of the symbols to change the lifestyle in Indonesia. But of course, many more will come. For example, Trans-Sumatera Toll Road is one thing. And also,
where's that?
it's a Trans-Sumatera Toll,
Trans-Sumatera.
Sumatera
Okay,
Toll Road.
Yeah.
And also, we are putting emphasis on outer island developments. We identified, Japan, Indonesia together identified 4 islands. and for the development of fish market as well as port facilities. Sabang in the western side to Biak on the eastern side. And last month, I had opportunity to visit the port facility and fish market in Biak, and widely used and appreciated by the local community. So I think outer island development is very important, another agenda items for our two countries.
Islands, it's more infrastructure.
Yes, infrastructure.
And more ports?
Port facilities and fish market to cater for local community.
And what about the Patimbang?
Well, Patimbang, yes, it's another important project. As I said, we'd like to see Indonesia becoming production as well as export hub of the region. Patimbang port is a very important strategic port for Japanese auto industry. And December last year, Patimbang Port Auto Terminal became operational. And since then, I think there is a smooth flow of export of auto made in Indonesia. I think originally the target of vehicles being carried out through Patimbang Port was about 160,000 per year. But now, since the operation goes very smoothly, we hope to achieve 180 to 190,000 vehicles being carried out through Patimbang Port. So as the port develops itself, I'm sure that the number of export of automobiles through Patimbang Port will expand in the future.
Okay, we also talked before about the energy. What about the project in Masela? I'm sorry, that's I almost forget about the Masela things.
Well, Masela still basically it's a private sector's initiative, and it's a difficult project.
Right.
And also
because of the switch.
Yes, and also as we try to achieve carbon neutral by the target date, how much investment we need to make in a fossil fuel is another matter. But I'm sure that whatever the problem may be, we can resolve the issue by a win-win cooperation between our two countries.
And we're also talking about the cooperation in the region, right? And we mentioned before about the Indo-Pacific. And it's also I heard that Japan also proposed the Asia-Japan Investing for Future initiative. And it's something different again, right?
Well, many initiatives.
Yeah, that's
yes.
Right. So what this is about?
Well, this is again started very recently, and trying to promote the future-oriented investment within the region. And in the case of me, since I'm ambassador here, important thing is to promote investment from Japan to Indonesia. I think two areas are identified. One is, again, enhanced resilience of our supply chain, and also digital transformation. And so far, I know that we identified and adapted 7 of that project for future investment. And as we have more follow-up discussion in the track 1.5 mechanism, as I described to you, I'm sure that we can have more of such investment in the future.
You mentioned quite a lot about the digital transformation. So what kind of project that actually we have here?
Well, numerous possibilities, but one is underway is the digital transformation of Indonesia's fishing industry. Fishing industry adapt more digital technologies so that the level of efficiency will increase. That's just one example, but I'm sure that there are many examples which private sectors are very much willing to tackle in the future.
Selamat datang di Politeknik Tempo, kampus vokasi yang siap menjadi lahan penyemayan ide dan gagasan baru untuk menjawab tantangan di era 4.0. Fasilitas belajar ditunjang sistem Smart Campus dengan pembelajaran serba digital membuat perkuliahan lebih mudah dan menyenangkan.
Kampus terintegrasi dengan industri media dan komunitas startup sehingga mahasiswa langsung berinteraksi dengan dunia kerja dan dunia usaha sejak dini. 3 program studi unggulan Politeknik Tempo, Desain Media, Produksi Media, Manajemen Pemasaran Internasional,
Sistem blended learning dan kampus merdeka dengan materi belajar 60% praktik menjadikan lulusan Politeknik Tempo sebagai sarjana terapan siap kerja.
Sebagai penyelenggara pendidikan, Tempo Media Group berpengalaman selama 50 tahun di industri media dengan reputasi tinggi. Mari raih masa depan gemilang bersama Politeknik Tempo.
Do you think, what sectors that you think could be improved to enhance the cooperation between the two countries, Japan and Indonesia, right now? I mean, it's like we already cooperate in many sectors, but probably you think there are some sectors that actually there is a potential, but not really developed well.
Well, as I said, property development, housing is one big potential. As we see increasing number of middle income earners in Indonesia, people started to buy independent houses. And I think Japanese developers are ready to come here and cater for the need of Indonesian potential house owners.
So has there been any Japanese companies right now that it's already become developer in Indonesia?
There are many. As you see, one example is so-called Trinity Tower, very high tower built by Japanese property developer, and many more examples throughout, particularly in metropolitan Jakarta.
Oh, yeah. And what about the tourism and education or other social sectors?
Yes, I think education and tourism is important. Not only they bring about economic benefit, but it will enhance mutual understanding between our two countries. Before the pandemic, we had about 500,000 Japanese visiting Indonesia and 400,000 Indonesian people visiting Japan. But since the start of the pandemic, both countries more or less closed the border. But now, Japan finally started to open our border for foreign tourists. Even though we still accept group tourists led by certified tour guides, so the number is limited. But as we bring about COVID-19 pandemic under control, we hope that we can receive many foreign visitors to Japan. Talking about education, yes, I think we have about 5,000 or more Indonesian students studying at tertiary education
With
institutes.
scholarship?
Scholarship. There are numerous scholarship programs available provided by the Japanese government as well as private companies in Japan. So if you are interested in coming to Japan under scholarship, please refer to us at the embassy. Or maybe you look into the YouTube of Mr. Jerome Paulin, who has been in Japan under private company scholarship. But if you look at his YouTube, you can see all what you need to know about life in Japan under the scholarship.
And it's also in the human resource development, also there is a cooperation between Indonesia and Japan, right? And I mean, it's a lot of Indonesian work or has interned in Japan. And is it still happening?
Yes. Because of the COVID, we were not able to accept Indonesian trainees in Japan. But since March this year, the program started. But not only we accept Indonesian workers in Japan. For example, take an example of MRT. We transfer our know-how and technology to Indonesian engineers so that the maintenance work of MRT can be done by Indonesian engineers alone by the end of this year. So I think that's a very important way of human capacity building in Indonesia.
Right. So it's always happened. It's always done when there is investment in Indonesia, especially with the high technology.
Well,
things.
auto industry, for example, Toyota Kijang was developed and tailor-made for the Indonesian market. And so many engineers working in Japanese auto factories. So I think human capacity building is taking place on the ground of the factories, or all the investment side by the Japanese companies.
How do you see your work as an ambassador in Indonesia? Is it really hard, or is just similar as ambassador in other countries? As Indonesia is a huge country.
Yeah, I think rewarding and challenging. Rewarding means that Indonesia is an important strategic partner for Japan. So serving as ambassador in this important country is very rewarding to me. Challenging, Japan has been one of the most dominant economic partners for many years, but now a lot of competition. So it's a challenging. And also, as you said, Indonesia is such a big country. So moving around within Indonesia, making official visits to many provinces, really physically challenging. Japan is such a small country.
What island that you have visited so far?
I visited, in terms of provinces, I visited Central Java, East Java, West Java, and also Papua, and also Bali, and North Sumatra.
Because you came here at the time of pandemic, right?
Yes. Under the pandemic, it's very difficult to move around.
Right.
But now, a lot of opportunities for me to move around within Indonesia.
What do you think the best things working here in Jakarta, in Indonesia?
Best thing?
Yeah.
I think...
the experience or...
I think meeting with Indonesian people who have very warm feeling about Japan. I'm always amazed to see that there are many Indonesian people who like to travel to Japan, visiting very many places in Japan, who enjoy Japanese food, Japanese cuisine. So I'm very much warmly received by many Indonesian people. So that's really the best thing in my life as ambassador.
The most difficult challenge?
Difficult challenge?
Yeah.
Well,
Besides the competition, the high competition with the other countries.
I think physically demanding. As I said, the moving around in this country, going to Papua, for example, it takes more than 6 hours by flight.
Right.
So, and sometimes I have to travel through a very bumpy road.
Right.
So that's a challenge, but again, it's very rewarding for me.
Is there anything that you want to say more before we end of this conversation?
Well, it's true that there are a lot of competition now, but I'm sure that Japanese companies are looking at big potential of Indonesia, and the Japanese companies as well as Japanese government are behind no others to try to come up with win-win relationship with Indonesia into the future. So please be rest assured of that.
Thank you, Mr. Kanasugi.
Thank you.
Thank you for the interesting and insightful conversation. We really appreciate you coming on these Simple Talks. Viewers, thank you for watching us. I'm Purwani Dia Prabandari. You can watch the next Simple Talks in the following month with another interesting topic and another insightful guest. Goodbye and see you next month.